The vision of Southminster Church began with the Presbytery of Western North Carolina in the early 1990s. A new church task force considered several sites around Charlotte before ultimately deciding on Gastonia, North Carolina. This committee recruited Dr. Jerry Braun from Washington, North Carolina to be its founding pastor and approved the seed money to purchase 16 acres on Hoffman Road from the Butch Adams family, including the small yellow house on the property, which would serve as the church office and meeting place for the first few years. In January 1994, the first service of Southminster Church was held at the Orthopedic Hospital on New Hope Road, where we would meet for the next 3 years. At the chartering ceremony on October 2nd, 1994, 155 people pledged their commitment to the new church development. Soon after our services began, plans for the initial building, as well as a site plan for the future growth, were developed. One of the primary decisions to make was what type of building to build: a multi-purpose gym or a sanctuary and education classrooms. We decided that we were a church first and should build a sanctuary. Our initial plans called for future education and sanctuary development closer to Hoffman Road, but God had different thoughts for our future. After the building plans were formalized, the Genesis financial campaign was formed to raise money for our first building. Our first task was to hire a chief fundraiser and advisor. My goal as chairman of the Genesis campaign was to get as many people involved in the campaign as possible so that everyone was invested. Ultimately, over 1/3 of the members became actively involved. At the close of the campaign, 45 families had pledged a total of $450,000 over 5 years. However, the members of Southminster were not the only ones to help lay the financial foundation for our church. Reverend John Debevoise, the pastor of First Presbyterian Church, was a major influence in our church gaining acceptance in the community. Friends of Southminster was a committee formed by certain members of First Presbyterian with the aim of raising money for our startup. And their church contributed as well. After raising the money, a building committee was formed, and in August of 1995, 18 months after our first service was held, a congregational meeting was held to approve the building plans. In March 1996, ground was broken, and on Easter Sunday 1997, our first service was held in our new sanctuary. At some point over the next couple of years, Dr. Braun was contacted about a lady in the community, Miss Catherine Brandon, who wanted to change her will so that a portion of her money might be better utilized by a church in the community. Upon her passing, that gesture turned into the gift which spearheaded the beginning of our second building venture. Around 2000, 3 years after completing our first building, the Exodus campaign was formed to raise money for our second building phase. After the Exodus campaign was completed, a building committee was formed. Plans were developed to build a family life center complex consisting of a gymnasium, additional classrooms that eventually would house the youth center, athletic fields, as well as a full industrial kitchen that could serve the needs of our church and beyond. Since 2003, the Family Life Center and recreational fields are used daily, with activities scheduled nearly every day of the week by our members as well as the community. In 2005, talks began for the potential merger of Southminster with Armstrong Presbyterian Church. Soon after the merger in 2006, a plan was developed to sell the Armstrong facility on Union Road and utilize the proceeds for new building development on the campus of Southminster Church. That included a plan to incorporate their stained glass windows into the new building in some fashion. In 2008, the Armstrong building was sold to Gastonia School of the Arts. Between 2008 and 2009, a decision was made to build a columbarium with gardens on the north side of our gymnasium. We also utilized 2 of the Armstrong stained glass windows for the project. This project, chaired by Jerry Keller, remains a beautiful addition to our church grounds. In 2010, founding pastor Dr. Braun retired, and Southminster entered a 3-year interim phase where any potential building plans were stalled. In 2013, Pastor Dan Odie was called to lead Southminster Church. In 2017 and 2018, a building committee was formed for the construction of our new sanctuary. After initial planning struggles, a new group was hired and a plan was adopted with much excitement. In 2019, the Joshua campaign was formed by Pastor Dan Odie to assist the financial needs of the new sanctuary, but also to develop the spiritual foundation of where our church was headed over the next several years. In March of 2020, we were set to break ground, but then COVID hit and changed the world. That made the building process significantly more complicated with the supply chain shortages and price increases. But we pushed on despite the difficulties. In September 2021, the new sanctuary was completed and then dedicated on January 9th, 2022, exactly 28 years to the day after our initial service at the orthopedic hospital. One of my favorite quotes by John Haggai relating to Southminster Church is, "Attempt something so great for God, it's doomed to failure unless God be in it." At each step along the way, God has provided, and this journey continues to be an amazing ride.